At local time for B-2 Spirit stealth bombers, call signs Pro 41 through 44, were pushing into Iranian airspace from 3 different vectors. Their mission was to destroy Iranian ballistic missile storage sites buried in deep underground caves across the country. The Iranians believed their missiles were safe, but they were about to get a taste of what the crews jokingly called the Freedom Dorito. Pro 41 and Pro 44 were 90 miles southeast of the Tabriz North Missile Base, and the mission commanders were deep into the drop calculations. The complex they were about to strike had heavy engineering work, 8 cave entrances and 6 vertical shafts that allowed the Iranians to fire missiles straight upward even if the launchers were still inside the cave. The math was brutal. They had to calculate bearing, speed, time, wind, direction, and several other variables to find the exact point in space where they needed to release their payloads. Right in the middle of those calculations, their radio squawked with a problem. Viper 1 reported 2 contacts bearing 045 climbing through Angels 20. They looked like Fulcrum's 2 MiG-29s scrambling out of Tabriz Air Base, which sat barely 15 miles from the missile complex. Pro 41 and Pro 44 were about to be exposed. The B-2 crews absorbed the report in silence. Radio transmissions could be detected, geolocated, and exploited. Silence was doctrine. But silence did not mean calm. A B-2 in a fight with a MiG-29 is like a billionaire in a tuxedo stuck in a dark alley, carrying a fortune but completely unarmed, surviving only on the hope that nobody notices him. Iranian ground radar searching for a Spirit might as well have been looking for a single grain of sand on a beach at night. But a MiG-29 carried an infrared search and track sensor called IRST, and it did not care about radar cross-sections. It looked for heat. For General Electric F-118 engines pushing a 150-ton aircraft through thin air were not exactly cold. If those MiGs got within 30 miles, they might pick up the thermal signature. That was why the bombers had escorts. 2 F-22s, call signs Viper 1 and Viper 2, pushed to military power and turned toward the contacts. Viper 1's a PG-77 radar locked both MiGs from 60 miles away. At that distance, the Iranians saw nothing on their radars. Systems delivered by Russia for exactly this purpose. Inside Pro 41 and Pro 44, the mission commanders watched their escort peel away on the tactical display. 2 triangles pulling northeast and 2 red contacts climbing southeast. Geometry they could not control. What they could control was the bomb run. The timeline said 70 miles to release. They needed those MiGs gone before they got there. When a B-2 opens its bomb bay doors, its radar cross-section increases dramatically. For about 10 seconds, the stealth aircraft becomes far easier to detect. Any radar looking in the right direction could suddenly see something that looked like a barn instead of a marble. Outside, the F-22s closed the distance. Viper 1 deliberately went active, lighting up the MiG's radar warning receivers. The Iranian pilots reacted instantly, banking hard and diving toward the mountain ridgelines where terrain clutter could hide them. They were not running. They were maneuvering through the valleys to break the radar lock and reposition. This created the scenario nobody wanted: MiGs hiding in terrain, clutter, and repeatedly probing back toward the corridor. Meanwhile, the B-2 crews continued the bomb run checklist while the MiG contacts flickered in and out of the clutter on the tactical display. One of the F-22s briefly acquired a target and fired an AMRAAM missile. The MiG pilot reacted instantly, rolling inverted and diving into a canyon. The missile lost the target in ground clutter and slammed into a mountainside instead. Pro-41 and Pro-44 remained locked on course while the autopilot held heading and altitude with precise stability. The mission commanders monitored 3 conversations at once: the bomb drop sequence, the F-22's hunting in the mountains, and the AWACS aircraft tracking the second MiG somewhere below. The mission commander announced the final sequence. Bomb bay doors would open shortly, exposing the aircraft briefly. Every element of the B-2's design, stealth coatings, curved surfaces, radar-absorbing materials, kept its radar cross-section extremely small. Opening the doors temporarily removed that advantage. The MiGs were now below and behind the bombers, outside effective infrared detection range through the terrain. The probability of detection was low, though never zero. The mission commander cleared the formation to proceed. The bomb bay doors opened and the rotary launchers spun into position. GPS guidance confirmed on all weapons. Several GBU-31 bombs dropped into the night, each adjusting its fins continuously as it guided toward individual aim points across the mountain complex. The first penetrator struck the eastern tunnel entrance at terminal velocity. Reinforced concrete folded inward as thousands of pounds of hardened steel smashed through it. The mountainside collapsed over the entrance, sealing it under tons of debris. The pattern repeated across the complex, with multiple bombs striking each entrance. Vertical launch shafts designed to open upward instead collapsed downward into the facility when the penetrators punched through and detonated. Pro-41 and Pro-44 turned west for the long flight home. Behind them, the mountain continued settling as the destroyed complex disappeared beneath rock and debris. Somewhere in the valleys below, the 2 MiG-29 pilots were still searching for targets that were never visible to them. Not far away, Pro-42 faced a different threat. Iranian engineers had developed a domestic air defense system to replace Russian equipment destroyed earlier in the conflict. Hidden in the mountains, a mobile phased array radar locked onto Pro-42 from long range and prepared to fire. Electronic warfare aircraft immediately flooded the radar frequency with powerful jamming signals. At the same time, a stealth fighter that had been monitoring the radar's emissions transmitted its exact location to Allied aircraft. A Growler launched an anti-radiation missile that accelerated toward the radar site. The Iranian battery had only seconds to decide whether to fire. If it launched quickly enough, a surface-to-air missile could reach the bomber before the anti-radiation missile destroyed the radar. The radar operators kept transmitting, attempting to maintain a firing solution despite the jamming. Meanwhile, two Allied fighters crossed the operational corridor to intercept a convoy transporting ballistic missiles toward launch positions. Precision bombs destroyed two launcher vehicles while the remaining trucks scattered into nearby mountain passes. Moments later, the anti-irradiation missiles struck the radar site. Even though the operators attempted to shut down the radar at the last moment, the missile used stored coordinates and inertial guidance to find the location where the radar had been transmitting seconds earlier. The explosion destroyed the air defense system. With the threat removed, Pro-42 opened its bomb bay doors and released 16 GBU-31 bombs to War II underground cave complexes near Isfahan. Each entrance received multiple penetrator strikes, collapsing tunnels and sealing the storage sites under rock and reinforced concrete. The final bomber, Pro-43, approached a cave complex that was actively launching ballistic missiles. Coalition radar detected repeated launches from overhead apertures built into the mountainside. Each missile fired toward coalition bases across the Gulf. The mission commander studied the launch pattern and realized the cave's own firing schedule revealed the timing of the loading cycle. By observing the interval between launches, he determined when each launch bay would be empty for a brief moment. Using that timing, he programmed the bomb release sequence so that the first weapons would strike the apertures just after the next launch cycle began. When the bombs penetrated the overhead hatches, they detonated inside empty launch bays, destroying the automated loading systems and launch rails without triggering uncontrolled secondary explosions. Additional bombs struck the remaining apertures and tunnel entrances in sequence. Each impact collapsed reinforced concrete and rock structures, sealing the access points and trapping everything inside the mountain. Within minutes, the facility stopped launching missiles. Coalition radar operators waited for additional launches that never came. The cave complex that had been firing missiles into the conflict only moments earlier had gone permanently silent.